Hey guys, just wanted to mention a couple of things that might catch some people out when they come here. People often ask us what the internet's like in Japan, you know, like what can you get, what can you see on the internet? Well, obviously it's the same internet that people use elsewhere around the world, so obviously we can see all the same stuff. But there is a couple of things that are a bit of a problem, and one of them is that many websites, including a lot of Google-owned websites, automatically detect what country you're in and change the language for you, which is very kind, except that if you can't read Japanese, a lot of websites like Google and Dell Computers and a whole heap of others will automatically change the language to Japanese, and usually you won't have an option to change it back to English because it says you're in Japan, your language is Japanese. So many websites don't give you an option to change back to English, and if they do, it's usually in Japanese. So the part, you have to go to tools, and all this is Japanese, right? You have to find the icon for tools, or the kanji for tools, and then you go into tools, and then you go into language settings, and you go and you change the language setting. But you've got to read Japanese to do it. So a lot of people get stuck and just can't get any further than that. Occasionally there's a switched on website. YouTube you can do it. You can change your country setting and your language setting separately. So you can say, I'm in Japan but I want English. You can do that, so that's pretty good. Having said that though, the YouTube website is English friendly, but let me tell you guys, if you come to Japan and live in Japan and you want to set up a website, a YouTube channel and put videos on YouTube, don't tell YouTube you're in Japan. I wouldn't encourage anybody to tell lies, but probably, let me phrase it a different way. If you tell YouTube that you are in Japan, you will have to deal with the YouTube office in Tokyo, and the YouTube Tokyo office in Tokyo are not interested in anybody who isn't Japanese, basically. First of all, it's a language thing. They used to have a guy in there, American guy from Oregon, quite a nice guy, who used to deal with the English-speaking people and the Japanese-speaking people. His Japanese was really good as well. And they decided that the English-speaking channels, the English-speaking people, were not the target demographic for YouTube Japan, so they removed him. So he's gone. So there's now nobody in the YouTube Tokyo office who will communicate with you in English. If you send an email to them in English, they won't answer it. They just ignore it. If you're really lucky, they'll send you a link to the help pages, you know, to the YouTube or the Google FAQs, basically is what it is, isn't it? They won't answer you. And from the links that they send, it's pretty obvious they couldn't even understand the email, you know. So I've sent a couple of emails to them about different things, and either I get no answer at all, or if I do get an answer, it's some FAQ page that isn't really relevant to what I was asking about anyway. So yeah, basically YouTube Japan is not English friendly, and it's not just the language either. I did try sending them an email in Japanese and they didn't answer that either, because they know that the demographic that the foreigners have is usually a foreign demographic. I mean, I've got 15%, something like that, 15% Japanese subscribers, but most of them can speak and read English, and it's not really the target demographic. YouTube's target demographic in Japan is Japanese people. For their advertising and so on, you know, so they're not interested. So basically, if you come to Japan and start a YouTube channel and tell YouTube you're in Japan, they won't support you. If you try and get support or help or have a problem or something, they won't even talk to you. They'll just ignore you. So yeah, YouTube Japan is not English friendly. You're better off, you know, the people who are in America or in Australia or some other country, English-speaking country, are better off. Not that I'd encourage anybody to tell lies, you know. So yeah, and then a lot of other websites. Interesting one, I bought a Dell computer in Japan online, but I had to do it all in Japanese. So Dell Computers, of course, is an American brand, and Dell is an American company, but Dell Japan has no English at all. So the website has no English on it. They have no English product support. And of course, when I contacted Dell in America to try and talk to them, they said, you're in Japan, you have to talk to our Japan people. And I said, Japan people, I have to do it all in Japanese. And they said, oh, sorry. So, and a lot of companies are like this. They just assume, you know, it's quite common, isn't it, in a lot of other countries to get different options for language, and usually English being like accepted as being one of the major, you know, international languages. Usually you can get English help in most countries, but yeah, in Japan that's very common, is that you just have no option. You've just got to do it in Japanese or not do it at all, find another company. So not English friendly. So yeah, sort of what I'm getting at with this video is just to sort of let you know, give you a bit of a heads up, that don't assume that you can come here. And even if you do see a website with English, sometimes you'll see a website that has Japanese and English. Even if they do have a page in English, don't assume they'll do business with you in English, because that's often the case as well. You know, I tested the tourist organisations. I had a list of 18 tourist organisations around Japan, including the Japan Tourist Organisation, and I sent emails in English, very simple English emails, to 18 of them, and I didn't receive one answer. With just simple email with just simple questions about, you know, can you please tell me what English information is available, you know, through your organisation, and received no answers from all 18 of them. And yet all 18 of them have an English page on their website. So again, you can't assume just because you see some English on their website, don't assume that they're English friendly, because they probably won't be. Same as if you call them, you know, if they have a page. Hotels, a good example is hotels. Lots of hotels have an English page, and then when you phone them, they can't speak English. Or you walk into their hotel, walk into reception and say hello, and they panic, you know. You get the wide-eyed look like that. Oh no, they're going to speak English to me. So yeah, again, I mean, it's Japan, the language is Japanese. I'm not complaining, this isn't a complaint. This is just a heads up, because I know the people who are listening to me now can speak English, and the people who are listening to me now are into Japan, because that's why they're interested in our channel. So it's my job to inform. So I'm just informing you that if you come to Japan, yeah, just because you see an English page, don't assume there'll be English. Even if you see a sign, particularly if you see a sign in English, don't assume that there'll be English in there. But particularly the website, yeah, the internet. The internet's quite surprising. And again, you know, YouTube, Dell, a lot of those other companies are American-owned companies, but have just no English support at all in Japan. So, and that's really common. That's the same with most of the international companies that have branches here, with the exception of some banks. But again, you know, even the foreign banks that have branches here, quite often they're aiming for the Japanese market, so they're not really interested in the foreigners either. So it's interesting, because there's a lot of us here. You know, there is a lot of foreigners living in Japan, and there's a lot of foreigners that visit Japan, and they claim to want more of us to come here to help the economy. But nobody's really focused. It seems to be, you know, I made a video recently about the reality and the image, and a lot of them want to sort of make the image that they're welcoming foreigners and that they're welcoming English speakers, particularly those tourist organisations. But what's it mean when they have one page? They have 15 pages in Japanese, and they have one page with a bit of English on it, and then when you send them an email, they don't even answer. And that was 18 out of 18 didn't answer. So what does that say? You know, what does that say? Email from the japanchannel.com. You know, I sent an email from the japanchannel.com to 18 tourist organisations who claim to want foreign tourists, and not one of them answered. So, you know, the reality, again, the image may be one thing, but the reality is, yeah, most businesses and organisations aren't geared for English speakers, and with too much hassle, to be honest. I think that's what it is. It's just so much easier for them to deal with Japanese people. Not just the language either. It's not just the language, it's the culture and the whole thing. You know, the Japanese people know the systems. They know how things are done. So it's just so much easier for companies and companies and organisations to deal with other Japanese people, because it's just easier. You know, there's no language problem, there's no cultural problem. Every Japanese people are into no problems, and they know that. Japanese customers are the best customers. You know, companies know this. you know, and it's just true. You watch the way Japanese people do business, you watch the way Japanese people conduct themselves as customers. They're the best customers in the world. Australia knows that. You know, Australian tourist organisations really target Japanese people. A lot of countries, tourist organisations target Japanese people because they're fantastic customers. They come for a short period of time, they're really super polite, they're really well behaved, they're clean, they're tidy, they're neat, they don't cause any problems, they're really quiet, then they pay their money and they leave. You know, they're the perfect customer. So why would they want us? You know? So again, it's another reason we started the English Friendly Directory, because this is not always the case. You know, you can see on the English Friendly Directory there is a lot of companies and organisations that do want us, that do want foreigners, and that do want English speakers. We should have called that, instead of English Friendly, we should have called it Foreigner Friendly, because it's quite often the case. It's quite often the language is irrelevant. It's really more about the people, you know, whether they want foreigners or not. So you'll also notice, interestingly, even though foreign-owned businesses in Japan is only a very small minority, of course, you'll notice that most of the listings on English Friendly come from foreign-owned companies, which is interesting, isn't it? So even though there's, you know, a very small percentage of the businesses are foreign-owned and most of the businesses are Japanese-owned, you know, most of the listings are from foreign-owned companies and only a very small percentage are from Japanese-owned companies. So again, it supports it, doesn't it, that, you know, they don't really want the foreigners. The foreign-owned businesses are happy to have the foreigners, but, you know, the Japanese-owned businesses aren't really interested, most of them. So, and again, I send hundreds and hundreds of emails to all the different companies that claim to be English friendly, you know, that have English websites, or that, you know, that claim to have English speaking staff and be English friendly, and I rarely get an answer. You know, it's the foreign-owned companies often answer me, but most of the English, most of the Japanese-owned businesses, most of them don't even answer my email, just ignore me. But, you know, pretty rude, but but I can take the hint. That's a Japanese way of rejecting people, and that's often the case with Japanese people. If you send a Japanese person an email, or if you ask a Japanese person a question and they don't answer you, that's the answer. The answer is no. It's the way they do it. They don't want to say no. They don't want to say no. They don't want to send an email and say no. So they just don't answer. That's what they do. Same as face-to-face. You ask a Japanese person a question, they don't answer you, that's the answer. Usually the answer is no. so anyway, yeah guys, it's, you know, again, it's why we did the English friendly thing. So again, I'll ask you for your support again while we're talking about this. Please, if you know any English friendly businesses in Japan or organisations in Japan, please tell them about the English Friendly Directory, and support it by getting more businesses and organisations on there. And if you're in Japan or you're coming to Japan, please use the English Friendly Directory as much as possible and support the people that are advertising on there, because we need, if we support that directory, it'll continue to grow and be healthy, and that encourages those people to keep helping us. You know, if we don't support the businesses and the organisations who try to help us with their English speaking staff and everything else, then they won't try as much, will they? You know, they need to see that it's worthwhile. If they employ English speaking staff and do stuff in English for us, and we don't use them, they'll see that they'll stop doing it. But if they do all that and they get more customers as a result, it'll encourage them, won't it? And it'll encourage the other people as well. And again, the language in Japan is Japanese, and that's fine. And if we come and live in Japan, we have to speak Japanese. That's the deal. That's the deal. But it's nice to have an option. And particularly for people coming for a week or 2 weeks, you guys aren't expected to speak Japanese. You should be able to come here and have your week or two and then go back. Lots of Japanese people visit Australia and Hawaii and other places that can't speak English, and they're not expected to. And it's the same deal. You should be able to come to Japan, spend a week or two here, have a great time, and go back again without being able to speak Japanese. Or just be able to speak English if you want to. You know, and those people who can speak Japanese will understand what it's like. You know, day to day, you know, it's okay. We can just use the Japanese, but it's so nice to have an English-speaking accountant. You know, and it's so nice to have an English-speaking dentist. You know, just think times like that when you're doing sort of important stuff. It is nice, and it's nice to have a choice. It's nice to have a choice. If people want to do everything, a lot of people are very gung-ho when they first come here. Oh, I just want to do everything in Japanese. You know, that's fantastic. But after the first 5 or 10 years, you know, you'll find English is refreshing now and again. If you do business with somebody, particularly if it's a difficult topic like accounting, like, you know, tax law or something like that, an explanation in English is a relief. You know, nice to have a choice. So anyway, yes, please support the directory, and if you come to Japan, yes, be aware. Brush up on your Japanese first and use the English Family Directory. More videos coming soon.